Hey everyone, it's Nissa. Today we're going to be talking about academic style and what some components are of academic style that you should be mindful of as you participate and engage in a class that focuses on writing for academic purposes. Some components of academic style. We're going to be focusing on three main ones today: complexity and precision, formality, and responsibility. The first one, complexity and precision. So what does that mean? Complexity and precision. In an essay for academic purposes, the language used is more complex than in spoken form. You're likely already familiar with this. When you're talking to somebody, the words that you use are often more wordy, and perhaps some of the words that you're using are unnecessary. When you're speaking to somebody, it's spur of the moment. You don't really have the opportunity to sit down and reflect upon what you're going to say. It just kind of comes out as you're reacting in the context. In academic writing, you want to try and refrain from wordiness, and eliminate words that don't help carry out the meaning of your purpose or the overall goal of your paper. So if a word seems to sound academic, but maybe it doesn't help carry across your message, you want to rethink including that word in your paper. So we'll go ahead and take a look at some examples of complexity and precision. So here we have a table that I just made. So in the left-hand column we have spoken examples, and then in the right-hand column we have written examples of those same cues. So the first example. So every time I went there for vacation, I never really liked it since I really hated the water. This sounds natural coming from a person's mouth. This is something that's very colloquial, very casual, very informal, not really trying to be too formal, trying to be anything, is just trying to communicate something with the spoken form. If I were to write this, however, maybe in an academic paper, in some kind of a narrative, I might revise it like this. Every vacation spent at the lake left me with a sense of dissatisfaction and longing for my life back home. Notice how I took out the word so. The word so is actually a kind of conjunction. It's not normally used to say, so we did this. Yes, in spoken language we do this, but in written language it doesn't really add anything, so I took that out. I left me and my in there because obviously this is an experience that I'm explaining. I can't really take that out. But that's something you want to be mindful of, is what kind of words are you using? Are you referring to yourself as I? Are you referring to yourself as me? Your reader is you. And should you really be doing that? The second example. Switzerland was really interesting and the scenery was so gorgeous. I took so many pictures. People should really take more trips to Switzerland. So obviously another example from a person's life, very excited, had a really good vacation. Notice again using the word I, and in fact even included an exclamation point. So in academic writing, we want to kind of bring this back a little bit, tone it down a little bit, make it a little bit more formal. So you might revise it like this. The scenery and heritage Switzerland has to offer makes it an ideal vacation spot for anyone who enjoys the outdoors. So I've worded it in such a way that it no longer directly addresses me as the writer, which is a way to include third person in your essay, is to kind of distance it from you as the writer. And also the exclamation point I took out. In academic writing, you may be really excited about something, but it's not really the place to show that. If you say, yes, I agree with this, don't put an exclamation point at the end, and don't use all caps. You know, if you say all caps, yes, I believe in this, again, the tone of that really isn't appropriate for an academic essay. So a couple more things you want to keep in mind. The next example, I literally don't know what I do without text messaging. Seriously, I use it all the time, and people are so much better off with a way to talk to their friends without having to actually call them. A couple of things here. The word literally doesn't really help anything here. I'm not really saying anything figuratively, so I really don't need to say, oh, this is truly correct. And also the contractions, don't and I'd instead of I would. We use contractions a lot in spoken language, but ideally in the written form you want to spell it out completely. So I revised my sentence in this way, again, taking out I, trying to distance it from myself as the writer a little bit, make it in the third person. Advancements in technology, such as the advent of text messaging, I should have said have opened up newer, more efficient avenues of communication for people. So again, making it a general idea, distancing it from myself as the writer. Maybe I'll find a statistic from a source that indicates how much text messaging has helped. Maybe a therapist saying, oh, text messaging really helps people's relationships. Again, trying to make it appropriate for an academic setting by making it a little bit more complex, making the language a little bit more involved, a little bit more intricate than the spoken language would be. And the last example, Champaign is so much different from my hometown. The people always say hello on the streets, even when they don't know me, but people never really seem interested in what I have to say when they ask how I'm doing. Notice how long that second sentence was. I think I tried to take a breath, but probably didn't get there. With your sentences, when we say complexity, I don't necessarily mean to make your sentences these huge long things, but to make sure that the items that the ideas that you're putting in your sentences, in your paragraphs, are well sanctioned into their own sentences, that you don't try and stuff too much into one sentence. And also, again, this is an example where I refer to me, what I have to say. I still have to distance it a little bit from myself and make it a little bit more put it in the third person. So I've revised it in the following way. When attending a university in another country, students should be mindful of the different cultural customs that govern everyday life. Understanding that social interactions differ from culture to culture will have students adjust better to life away from home. So I've taken it away from my personal experience and put it in the broader context of maybe the topic that I'm trying to address. Which is the other thing, is you want to be able to make your topic applicable to more than one person, more than just to you. So how can you bring your topic into a more complex situation, into more of a general, broad scenario? So we've talked about complexity and precision, and now we're going to move on to formality. Formality. When writing for an academic audience, the writer's purpose is best served with a formal tone. And a lot of you have been talking about this in your responses to the assignments, that when we ask what academic writing is, you say it's with a formal tone, which is probably one of the more recognizable components of academic style. Another part of this is to avoid colloquialisms, like we mentioned in the earlier part of this with complexity and precision, to not refer to yourself as I and to the reader as you, so that you want to distance it from yourself a little bit. Be more formal with your reader. Don't try and be too close to them in the writing by using I and you and we and pronouns like this. So there's a couple different parts to formality. There's tone. So what kind of tone are you using? What kind of word choice are you using? And also, what kind of structure are you using? We're going to look at some examples here of some movie reviews. Each of them writing for a different audience and likely with a different purpose. We've already talked about those two things earlier, so keeping in mind who you're writing something for and also why are you doing the writing. And each of these three examples, as you'll see, have different answers to those questions. Okay, so what we have here is a movie review from Roger Ebert's website. He works for the Chicago Sun-Times. He's a movie reviewer for them. He's reviewed movies forever. This is what this guy does. So clearly, he has a certain tone and a certain level of formality that he wants to uphold with this piece of writing. So we're going to just focus on the first paragraph. Woody Allen's latest film, To Rome with Love, generates no particular excitement or surprise, but it provides the sort of pleasure he seems able to generate almost on demand. The New Yorker who claims to be uneasy after a night away from home here sets his fourth recent film in a European capital, treating Rome like a besotted tourist. He tells 4 stories that are intercut but not interlocking, and 3 of them are funny and charming. So if you notice here, his tone is pretty formal. He's not writing an academic paper, but he's also not writing a blog post. The language is still pretty elevated for the sort of thing that he's doing. So his tone is formal. He's using a word choice that is understandable, I think, to a general population, but it's also on the elevated side. So if you were in, say, the 5th grade or a younger child, you probably would have trouble understanding this. And all of these things contribute to how he wants to come across in his writing to the particular audience audience that he's trying to reach, which as a writer for the Chicago Sun-Times, he knows is a newspaper reader. Maybe it's a moviegoer. If you want to go and read Roger Ebert's movie reviews, you likely care about the movies that you're seeing. You're likely a cultured person. You probably enjoy movies. You probably understand what movies are about. So maybe a little bit more educated. So all of these things, his tone, his level of formality, all of these choices are made with the audience and purpose in mind.